All right. So today I want to talk a little bit about my decks for the 200 SAS Cap being run by Lady Aurore of Timeshapers, Team Sanctimonious. So this is a triad league, and the big challenge with this triad is that the combined SAS score can be no greater than 200, and then also Heart of the Forest and Martian Generosity are also banned. So I want to just kind of run through some of the decks, or the three decks that I chose, talk a little bit about the strategy that I used in selecting these decks. I hope to then have some videos actually demonstrating the triad in action. So hopefully I can make it pretty deep. We'll see. I'll put up videos that I can record, win or lose. It is double elimination, so if I am knocked out after 2 rounds, I'm knocked out after 2 rounds. But there's a couple different kind of mindsets when you're thinking about a triad. One strategy is to sort of have just very similar decks. Another strategy is to sort of approach it with very dissimilar decks, and that's the strategy I took. In part because of the fact that this is a 200 SAS cap, that means that it's would be kind of difficult to get very similar decks. I think this is going to, having a 200 SAS cap is going to be really interesting in the banning process, because these decks are going to be much more similar than what we might find in a true triad, where it's often the case that there's just a deck that stands out in someone's triad, and so you end up banning it. That's not always the case, but that is often what we see in a triad. So I want to start off with my first deck here. This is my highest SAS. It's a 69. This is Doc Elion, the Dim Teacher. This is also the deck I'm running in the current coat. So this deck is, I should mention I'm 0-2 with this deck in the current coat, so maybe it's not the best example, though both games were very competitive. So, I'm okay with my choice. What is interesting about this deck is it is Worlds Collide, and it has Brobnar. So, in some ways, that probably is downgrading its SAS a little bit. The Brobnar is actually pretty good here. It's got double Berserker Slam and double Rock Hurling Giant. And that double Berserker Slam with Overrun means that it can actually pull down someone's amber count pretty quickly in a turn. It also has a Grok with 2 Ganger Chieftains, so it is quite possible, with the right sort of configuration, to pull someone down with 2 Berserker Slams, costing them an amber apiece, Grok costing them another amber, and then an Overrun costing 2 more amber to pull someone down by 5 amber in a turn, which is really nice. So it can flip amber count, and it can flip the board state with these rock hurlings. So the Brobnar is actually quite good, and then it's got some interesting logos and some interesting Star Alliance. It's got a candle unit, which is again nice if you can get it there and get it protected. It prevents reaps, or at least if someone is going to reap, it is going to draw you cards, and so that normally triggers a reaction from someone. It's got a memory chip for archiving. It's got academy training, so I can pull things into Logos and sort of play out of house and draw a card. Tattoo Vapors again for archiving. So it's got some neat little tricks in Logos. Star Alliance. It's got some minimal artifact control and Technivore Pulpate, though Technivore Pulpate does do a lot of work typically in this deck. A little bit of anti-symmetry because I do like that memory chip and that Seismo Entangler, but they're not critical to the success of this deck. If my opponent has archives or artifacts that are really critical, this Technivore Pulpate can do a lot of work. With the double Kirkar, double Sensor Chief Garcia, and double Information Officer Gray. Stealth mode, zap, some really nice Star Alliance, but it's got a lot of archiving, so you can kind of build up that Brobnar into a really explosive Brobnar turn. So it's a nice, fun deck. It plays very differently than I think most folks expect from like a Worlds Collide meta, and that's I think what we're going to see a lot in sort of except maybe the AOA deck that I'm going to play. Is that I play kind of against the sort of expected meta of the decks. That's the dim teacher. So the kind of key elements there is that it has Brobnar, Worlds Collide Brobnar that can really flip, does some unexpected Brobnar things, both Amber Control and board control. And I love the Amber Control being 7.5 on SAS because I can literally pull someone down 5 Amber in a single turn. And then I also have 2 Sensor Chief Garcias. It's just kind of evidence that SAS gets things wrong sometimes. It's a really fun deck, and that's really I think the thing you want to do when you're picking a triad is pick something fun and that you know how to play. And I play this deck pretty efficiently. Oh, one thing I also forgot to mention is that in Logos, if I can get control of the board, get my rock hurling giants out, is I have these double Sanitation Engineers, so I can use Sanitation Engineers to discard Brobnar out of house, and then also continue to do 4 damage or a piece. So if I have double rock hurling giant, double Sanitation Engineer, I can do 16 damage potentially with the right cards in hand in a Logos turn. So that's really nice. It doesn't happen too often because you really need to have board control for that to happen, and also Brobnar in hand. So, but if I can draw into that, there's Academy Training, Tattoo Vapors, Babbling Bibliophile if it survives, things like that. So there are ways to get there, and it has occasionally happened. So it's just kind of a cherry on top of this deck. It's not necessary for the success of the deck. All right, the next deck I'm going to do is my Mass Mutations deck. And this is the BG of Bro Realm. Bro, what's up? So this deck is a 67, and it is one of my absolute favorite decks to play. Obviously, this deck is it's got some really interesting things going on in it, mostly in Star Alliance, but Star Alliance basically sets up everything out of house. What's the challenge with this deck is that it takes a little bit of time to set up, but it's a triple transporter platform deck with Nell. So there's our Officer Nell. And then what's really cool about this deck is that every single, we can pull up the photo here, every single upgrade in Star Alliance is enhanced. So if I can get those transporter platforms out, if I can get Nell out, I'm just doing. I have capture on Stunner, capture on Universal Translator, and double damage on Countersuit. I also have damage on Subject Kirby and damage on Crewman Yorg. So those transporter platforms can actually really do some damage to the opponent's board, while also doing a massive amount of capture and amber gain. And then with Nell out, you're drawing. And so that sets up future turns that are just fantastic. So it's got some really nice play there. The other two houses don't look amazing, but they actually do play play better than they look. So Cleansing Wave actually typically does a lot of work in this deck, especially because there's 9 damage pips. Lieutenant Gorbinal and Fawn of the Eye do pretty well, and then also the Umbra Knight, which is a 4 power 2 armor with elusive, is just a great target to capture Amber onto, because there's just so much capture happening as well. There's only 3 capture pips, but they're just recycling because of the transporter platforms and the fact that they're all basically on. 2 of them are on upgrades. One other is on a transporter platform itself. So it's very beatable if you have the right set of cards. Basically, a Sneak Lifter is just the worst card that this deck can face, because you can just sneak lift a transporter platform and then just proceed to sneak lift the rest of the transporter platforms, and then one of my other then go ahead and sneak lift a Snaith House, and then next turn or future Shadow's turn, sneak lift my Font of the Eye, and then I'm just doomed. So obviously, if I see a Sneak Lifter deck in this triad, that's probably going to be an auto ban, because of the fact that I just don't want to face Sneak Lifter against this deck in particular. I anticipate that this deck is going to be banned the most, just because it's the flashiest with the triple transporter platforms, but I could be mistaken. So I don't think I'm going to see a lot of play with this deck, but I couldn't be mistaken. And then the final deck of my triad for this 200 SAS Cap Triad is I don't even know how to say the first Kadija Discord Gorjar. So this is an AOA deck. It's a 64, and I think one of the advantages for any SAS Cap event is AOA is always slightly underrated. The big things that it has going for it, really it has, it's a shard deck. It's a triple shard deck, so it's got Shard of Pain, which is an okay shard, really situational, but it has probably what I think are the 2 best shards. Shard of Hate, especially if you can get all 3 shards out. That's doing, when you're in Mars, you're stunning 3 creatures. That's pretty fantastic, and you can, unlike Tremor or something like that, where they have to be neighbors, you can just target your stuns. And then of course, Shard of Greed, which again, with all 3 shards out, that's 3 amber gain on an action. That's really fantastic. So it's got that. It has Hysteria with a Life Ward, which if those two can come together as a pair, you can send back your opponent's creatures and then Life Ward them, which clogs the hand, disrupts rhythm, forces your opponent to think about either discarding their entire hand. It really just sort of can really disrupt the rhythm of play. It's got Double Streak, which is an okay card. If you can get it off the flank, but there's a lot of ways to get things off flank here. So I mean, if you can get it, with double neighbors. But it has a lot of ways to upgrade. Well, it has double Nizzig Resonator with Yillick's Dominator, so you can really kind of try to bury these guys behind Taunt and drive up key costs. So it's got some nice things. You can see why the SAS is a little low. Triple Carpet Flotsam is normally just played for the Amber. With Axiom, it can be useful because there's really not capture here. So if someone Axioms my side, then Carpet Flotsam is normally a pretty good response because they normally have a board and I don't. So Carpet Flotsam, dealing 4 damage to everyone over there. It does have double Miasma and a Swindle. Swindle's very situational. Furtive Investors can be very useful. This deck can come back very quickly with those double Miasmas, the Furtive Investors, the Shards, and it also has a Sneak Lifter. So, this one is... It's a little bit more spread out in what it's able to do. It has decent Amber control. It has really nice ways to gain Amber. A lot of disruption in my mind. It's a little slow. All the decks really that I'm playing require setup. So if I'm running into somehow, you can find some decent rush decks in this sort of 60-ish SAS area. So if I run into any of those are also probably going to be ones that I have to consider banning because I'm just all of the decks I'm playing require just a little bit of time to set them up. So I hope to have some content later of showing these guys in action. All right.